I'm saying? People get into those conversations of, king, and they use different words to try to illustrate this. But I believe what it really is that you've always been destined to be great, and you just have to remember. That's why I like to study history, because we look at the African history and you see these great things going on. You see explorers and scholars, engineers, all these people that are just groundbreaking in their intelligence. And sometimes we forget when we're here walking around all the sin and hate that we are that, and that we're able to be just as intuitive and innovative, right?
Yeah, and they did that with less resources. So when you think about that, like, we're all three black men sitting here, think about what our ancestors endured and what our ancestors accomplished. It's like how we have no excuses not to win out here. No excuses.
The R&B podcast is here for you. It's that R&B podcast, what we gonna do? It's Russ and Blake with another guest in here. So listen to what we gotta say for you. All right, y'all. Welcome back to R&B Podcast with Russ, with Blake, episode 35.
Yep.
And thank God for the opportunity to have a very special guest, good friend of my boy Russ. So obviously, automatically a good friend of mine, Mr. KJ. I'm going to let Russ do the full introduction because they go back and have some history together.
Yeah.
Who we got with us here?
KJ Davis. I met KJ at Phoenix College freshman year, first year summer workouts outside in the track, and the Phoenix summer, man, 110 degrees. We out there just working out, trying to get ready to be college athletes and everything. You're a person I know who's always been very competitive and taking whatever you do seriously. And then I know a lot of people have seen me rock the Never Off Work shirt.
I got it on.
Yes, sir. So, KJ, why don't you first just tell us, what is Never Off Work? What does it mean?
And I got it. First of all, it's just an honor to be here. I've been watching y'all kind of come up and start this thing from the ground up, and it's amazing to see where y'all at.
Yes, sir. Thank
you.
Yeah, appreciate it. Never Off Work. So I started it back in 2017 while I was out in Minnesota, which we eventually ended up linking up out there as well.
Yep.
It started off as just an idea, kind of inspired by my brother Lawrence. He had a brand called Gold Mines at the time, and I just kind of wanted my own thing. So that's how I kind of started out. And then the messaging kind of grew with it while I grew. So Never Off Work is really about your legacy. I say your work is your legacy and how you're remembered when you're gone. Not just gone from this earth, but, when I leave this room, how you guys going to remember me. And all our legacies are built up of a lot of moments, a lot of small nows. And I like to say now is forever, because every little moment is a part of your story at the end of the day. So what I try to push people's mindsets to is, what if you can be intentional with what you leave behind for everybody else? So, that's as big as something as doing philanthropy and things like that, or just, holding the door an extra few seconds for the next person coming in. All of that stuff matters. And if we were to use our true power of intention, I think, we could solve a lot of problems here. Maybe not all of them, but we can get started somewhere.
Yeah.
So that's what Never Off Work is about, just, being your best self, empowering others to be their highest self, and kind of having fun with it and doing you on the way.
Yeah, I feel that.
Perfect.
Yeah, and I agree, man. Being intentional with what you do, knowing that eyes are on you, whether you think it is or not. People are always going to get an impression of you. And, what kind of energy are you going to leave with them? Do you feel like you've always been understanding of that message of being in the moment and being intentional, or do you think it's something that occurred where you were like, I gotta figure out a different way to kind of orient myself?
I haven't. I haven't always been just aware of how powerful each and every moment is, and I think sometimes still I have to remind myself to stay locked in, because the other side of Never Off Work is, I'm always grinding. I'm going from one thing to the next, and a lot of times when you're doing that and you're stuck, we're all kind of grown now. Not kind of, we are grown. Tripping, but, we have responsibilities now, a lot more. We have bills due and, family to keep in touch with. And I know you have a daughter, you know what I'm saying? So you have that to tend to, being a father. So we get caught up and forget to just be where we're at and have our mind synced in with where our feet are. And, you know, to answer your question, no, I don't think I've always been like that. I think I'm naturally more just on the go, live fast type of person. So having this brand is also a reminder for me to, hey, slow down, embrace this moment, cherish it. And then, you know, we can move on to what you're thinking about.
Yeah, be
man.
present or
Yeah.
just be, like we say sometimes, right? And obviously, from being a high-level hooper, you had an injury, you know, and I'm sure that played a role in you having this understanding of how important these moments are and how much you have to cherish the opportunities that you have.
Oh, yeah, because, so a little backstory on that. This happened, I had a weird road to get to, you know, where I met Russ, which is our freshman year at Phoenix College. So I graduated 2012. I said I'm from Virginia, so I moved out here before my junior year. I kind of floated under the radar. I didn't really have any, you know, I didn't play club or none of that. So after my senior year, which I played good, I didn't really have the recruitment offers that I wanted. So I went to Westwind Prep, which at the time was a post-grad academy, really good, with a really good history. So the idea was play there for a year. We play against all the junior colleges and, you know, I'll hopefully play well and, you know, get better offers. So what happened was I did that, played well. End of the season, I'm going through, you know, I have offers. You know, I went to UTSA on a visit, first D1 visit. And I had a visit scheduled to North Carolina A&T that Tuesday. Saturday before, and this is like May of 2013. That Saturday before my visit, flight booked and everything, I'm at the Lifetime playing some good pickup like I normally do. And I go over there to grab a rebound. Nobody's around me. I'll come down on one leg, and next thing you know, my ankle is right up by my hip. Legs completely sideways. And all I remember is just there was crowd of people watching the game on the baseline, and I seen dudes just, and run out the gym.
Yeah.
So I'm like in shock, and I try to, you know, hop up and like, I'm good. And I hopped maybe like 3-4 times and just had no power in my leg.
Yeah.
So it was that moment where it's like at an instant, like it's all gone. Everything you work for, you know, I'm 19 at the time, playing basketball since I was like 4 or 5. So 14 years of work just in my head has gone down the drain. So that ride to the emergency room where I could probably first remember like, dang, like I'm fully in this moment. And it wasn't a positive moment, you know, but looking back, because I was able to be fully in that moment and kind of the whole process of recovering from that and going to rehab and doing that, I had to be there. Like my mind was on the court, but I knew that my body couldn't be on the court and do what I normally do. So against my will, really, I had to bring my mind back to what I was doing, which was rehabbing and, you know, the baby exercises you have to do that make you feel super unathletic. So I would say that it kind of did spark without me knowing at the time, it did spark my, you know, the message of my brand and staying in the moment. No, that's kind of a long answer to your question, but
no, that's a perfect answer. And then so how much time was it between you having that experience and you actually starting your brand?
So that was so about 4 years. Yeah, 4 years from then.
I'm wondering, did any of the Division I programs tell you like, oh, you could come out here and still rehab with us and be a part of what we're doing? So it's just pretty much done from there.
I got a lot of good lucks.
Oh,
Best
man.
of luck to you.
Yeah.
It's a business up there, and you know the way I was trying to be recruited was I wanted to play right away. And all those schools, they're, you know, lower D1 schools, they were with that. So, you know, if you're recruiting somebody to play the next year and they go down, it's no, oh, we'll wait. It's no red shirt. Nah, we wanted you next year. So, yeah.
Now, I like how you illustrated that, though, because sometimes it is a detrimental moment that opens us up into being in the moment. And it sounds weird because it's like, oh, I would never want that to happen. And a lot of times some of those little keys into evolution are found where we don't want it to happen. You know what I mean? And that's one of the biggest things. It's funny because when people ask me, they'll be, oh, your shirt says never off work. they'll automatically assume it means I'll work 18 hours a day and sleep and only go to work. Right. And then I explained to them, well, there's this process where I'm always working on myself. No matter if I just woke up in the morning or if I'm doing something great or something that I don't like, I'm still working. You know what I mean?
I love that.
For sure.
Yeah, because even me, when I first saw it, that's the same thing I thought of. I was like, oh, I don't want to never be off work. But work can be different depending on the context, right? We all think of work as our job and our career, but work can be positive, and when you're working on yourself, that should be something you enjoy. And even when you guys were hoopers, right, high-level hoopers, when you're putting in the work towards your sport, that's something you enjoy, right? And it doesn't have to be a chore all the time. And we really achieve the success that we want when we look at the work in a positive light, and it's work that we want to do, and it's work we're eager to do. And so working all day doesn't have to be like something I need to do to survive, right? Need to do to pay the bills, which later down the road, that level of work seems to cloud our perception of what the personal work needs to be or what it can look like. And people talk about having the time, right? A lot of people don't take care of their bodies because they don't have time. Don't take care of their minds. They don't have the time to take 10 minutes out of the day and meditate or stretch, whatever it may be. But putting in work in all those areas, 10 out of 10 times benefit whatever work you have to do, right?
Absolutely. And I always tell people, like, it's not so much about what you're doing, it's how you're doing it. You know, are you doing this thing with love and with a good attitude and a good approach, a positive approach and a productive approach? You know, are you approaching every little thing like that? Because I think what separates us, like, you know, I mean, I don't believe that we evolved from like chimps and things like that. That's not something that I believe, but like, people ask, like, what separates us from the two? Because we're, you know, similar body structure or whatever, but what separates us is we have free will. Like, we have that power of choice, and every time you wake up, you know, you have a choice to wake up, or you have a choice to roll back over, snooze the alarm. You have a choice to, like you said, meditate and get right into your routine so you can have a productive day, or you can just sit there.
Right.
You know, so all of that matters in the, you know, in the grand scheme of like what legacy you're leaving behind.
Yeah,
all of it
changes the whole day, whether or not you get up 15 minutes, 30 minutes later, right? And then compound that 365 days and then 10 years, right? That's so much time that essentially you're doing nothing. And it matters in the big picture. I watched this Netflix series. It was called Beef. Have you guys seen that? Did you watch Beef?
Is it the hip hop Beef? Is it
No, so it's about, I won't give you the whole way because I want y'all to watch it. It's really interesting. It's a short little series, but basically it starts with road rage. Road rage between two random people, and it escalates into this ends up being like a whole life-death situation, and people's families get involved. But it started from two people, you know, having road rages. Both of these people just happened to have a bad day at the time, and now, weeks and months later, there's just total chaos in both of these people's lives, and because their family life, all stemming from one moment of road rage, which probably stems from a moment of just, you know, oh well, I didn't my check was short, or, you know, they don't go that far back in the thing, but these little things happen throughout our day, and, you know, some of the stuff we have control over, and we can never know. It could end up being something really great or something really bad. So we have to pay attention to those little things. So it was like a great demonstration of what work is, because, you know, every now there's something going on that could impact the next thing.
For sure. Yeah, and it's, you know, I talk about this with some of the students I work with. It's like, if you know that there's been cyclical trauma in your history, some people feel like they don't deserve that, and they are upset. Why has this been placed upon me? My history isn't fair. But each moment, it's like we could take the accountability to start to change that cycle. And someone's going to have to do it, whether it's you or it's, you know, the person down your generations. But you really have the opportunity to take control of the moment and say, you know what, I'm going to make sure this cycle changes the other way. Now, that comes with a lot of work. I remember when, like KJ was saying, we played together at Phoenix College, and then I went to Minot State. He went to Southwest Minnesota, which are in the same conference.
NSIC.
Great D2 conference. And when we got to Marshall, Minnesota, KJ hit me up, was like, all right, let's go out to dinner. He came pick me up from the hotel.
Which was frowned upon, might have, but I did it anyway.
I can imagine.
Yeah, and I appreciate that because it was a great time. It was like, all right, we're competitors tomorrow, but we teammates and homies right now.
Yeah.
And I went back and I saw that you had invested in the shirt press, right? To
Heat
be able
press,
to.
yeah.
What's it called?
Heat press.
Heat press. Okay, so is that the first thing that you invested in to start building your products?
No, it wasn't. The first investment I did, because I knew I was toying with the idea like the summer, but when it got down to fall, like I knew what this was going to be. I knew this was going to be my thing that's here forever. So the first investment I did was just actually getting the business part set up. Like I got the LLC, things like that. And then once the, us athletes, we love that Pell Grant when it comes in.
Yeah.
So when I got the Pell Grant, and it was that, like September, that fall, that's when I had got the heat press and the materials to make shirts and started kind of experimenting.
Yeah. And then I always saw that one thing that would align with your brand is that you would go to schools around Marshall and talk with the students. Like, what kind of things would you say to the kids?
And just what I just told you now, just the importance of each moment. And it's tough to hear that, when you're young, because like, you're young, like what you mean? Like I got a long life ahead of me, but they really took to it. I think it was just cause I was a college basketball player in the small town. They took to it, and then they just really bought into just being in the moment and working hard. There's nothing wrong. Working hard really can't hurt you at all, because either if you don't get to your goal, you're still going to have that confidence that you put in the work to get that goal. So, your time is coming, basically. And they kind of bought into it, and I think the logo looks cool. That also got to, that also catches people's eyes, the slogan. And once people get the messaging up from it, I was just getting asked to speak to, middle school and JUCO teams around the area. I did like a couple high school assemblies out there, and it was really cool. But what I was saying, just that same message, do your best, do your best for others when you can. And, life is about being your best self so you can leave a good legacy. And they loved it.
That's important. Yeah, it's cool to give that message to kids, because I think the average kid is living in the moment, but they're not really aware that those actions in that moment are significant to the future still, right?
For sure, yeah.
And that by them being intentional about what they're doing is so important down the road, because I know me, it's easy to relate all this to sports, right? So it's like you go to your workouts and you're excited for the games and you're putting in the work for the game the next week, and then we have the aspirations of going to the next level. But then there's a lot of stuff in between where, we have time off of work, essentially, and we know all those keys and we know the certain drills that we need to do, but there may be days where we slack. There may be days where we're not eating the way we need to. There may be days where we don't stretch before we need to go do our workout. And for me, I had a couple injuries when I was in high school, and just letting kids know that even that's part of your work, right? And the stretching should be good for you. That needs to be something you learn to enjoy, because it's essential and it's needed before you can be the athlete, before you can go in the game. And you got to take all those steps leading up to the game before you can expect to perform.
Right.
And you got to put the whole piece together and then be consistent about it also. And then so, I love that you're spreading that message, just because me bringing kids into this world, I just need to know that there's people like you out there that are trying to give a positive understanding of what it means to grind. Because I think sometimes the grind looks toxic, and people think that they have to step on people and you have to ignore certain qualities of your life, right? But having the balance, because everything we do is included in it, is a really good perspective to have.
Yeah. And the other thing is, like, I like to say that the whole message to my brand, it's like solution based, because like you said, with these new generation of kids, they have access to so much toxicity. Like, man, it's crazy, really. It's really crazy what they have access to. So if we can slip in a few positive words and, hey, like, I'm not telling you to, I'm not going to beat the next generation up, but like, hey, like, go work hard at something, go build something, you know, tune into, I think this is a good thing for young teenagers to watch as well, because they're seeing, you know, dudes that's not too far removed from being teenagers, you know, still talk about real life stuff and have a positive perspective on it. And you guys are not like just all about the drama that's going on and not hyping up the wrong thing. And that's something that bothers me. So when it comes to my brand, I take it more serious, because I know this might be like the only positive, productive message that these kids see all day. You know, between the Instagram, TikTok, and then they go home and talk mess on the video game to each other. Like, we got to slip some type of productivity and positivity in there somewhere.
For sure.
And even their relationships within their family might not be positive, right? And then that's just like constant negativity. And so it's hard to have that break and be aware that being intentional about bringing positivity in your life is possible, regardless of what situation you're in, you know. Even when you're saying about social media and having access to all of these negative things, I'm sure you let the kids know that these are also tools that you have access to that 25 years ago nobody could access things as easily. So if you are intentional about it and you make it be beneficial to whatever it is you're trying to accomplish, then you can take a lot of control. But it's easy to slip into the negative sides of it. I know Russ is big on having detox from social media, just because it's like after a while it's like the algorithm's almost trying to feed you the negativity regardless, you know. And I've had that situation with just the Alexa Echo in my kitchen where I'm like, okay, I need to turn this off because it's just showing me all these bad news headlines that I'm really not that interested in. And it's like, what happened to you showing me a recipe of the cookies? And it's almost like the technology don't want you to ride that smoothly, so you just have to be aware and find a way to take control of it, right?
Yeah, and, you know, like the hate exists and the love exists, and we choose which one we want to look at. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes I'll just ponder on why is the message of hate given to the kids, to people so frequently? Like, why is that the diet that it seems like these algorithms and these systems want to feed us?
It's a lot of it's the emotional response, and whether it's you trying to sell something or trying to get somebody to click on something or get more involved in a certain realm of the internet, if you trigger an emotional response, regardless of if it's positive or negative, you're going to get them drawn into it, right? And sometimes the negative is just easier to throw out there. And it's interesting because there's actually studies that show that the human mind wants drama. It wants these kind of negative things. And that's why you see people that almost, it looks like they're doing these things to themselves, right? It's like, if you only made X, Y, and Z decision, you wouldn't be in this situation. And it almost seems cyclical, but that's like human nature for whatever reason. But again, it's whether or not you're going to be intentional and aware of it.
Yeah, and you brought up that, you know, you don't believe that humans evolved from some lower animal and we've kind of had this mind. Do you see any reason why the human brain would want to have drama or negativity around it?
No, I don't know why we're so attracted to it. Like, cause I think of like, I love boxing, right? You know, and that's like a historic sport, but why are we so, you know, why do we get so fired up when we're seeing two people fight? You know, I don't know. I haven't done those type of studies. I would love to see why we're so attracted to that. And, you know, on the other side, why the positive stuff doesn't catch our attention. That is really interesting to me. But, you know, to speak more what you guys are speaking on, I think it's all by design. Because when you see what they're, you know, I look at them like they're feeding this to our children, but they're feeding this to like the adults of tomorrow. So all these kids are growing up with this energy that they've downloaded into their systems, and they're going to be the 30 and 40-year-olds one day, and they're going to be making based decisions and more important decisions at that age based on what they've learned.
They're growing the kids up faster too. Which is a crazy thing. And it's like not only from what they see, but you know, there's always been like child stars, but now it's like any kid can have a TikTok or Instagram account and have 200,000 followers and all of a sudden be making money. And that monetization piece, I think, is 9 out of 10 times going to get corrupted. Just whether it's the parents starting to focus on the money too much or the industry that the child's involved with. I think they see that there is this attraction to the youth, whether it's going to be in a like natural unperverted way or not. They see an opportunity there, and then also they're going to be a consumer as early as possible. So you want the kids to be asking their parents to buy things. You want the kids to be interested in your products for as long as possible. Coca-Cola, McDonald's, right? Who are they going to market to so they can have a lifelong customer? So it's crazy you get into all of those little nuances within branding and stuff. So I'm glad that, again, you have a positive message with a visually appealing logo, and you've found your avenue to spread that word and to a level to where people are asking you to do it. So like you said, it's not easy to get a positive message to that level of acceptance, right?
Right.
So that's something definitely to be proud of in this journey.
I appreciate that, bro.
Thank
you.
Yeah, and to speak on what you're talking about them trying to create lifelong consumers, it's like they need people to believe that they're not whole and that something that they can add to them is going to make them whole and give them self-esteem, right? So you're making your own shirts. There's some people that believe that they need to go buy a $500 shirt to have the worth that they believe they should have.
Right.
And I mean, we all know that sometimes the positivity or the daily grind, it gets to be monotonous. It's boring. For me, I used to shoot like 50 form shots in each spot. I just sit there right next to the hoop. There's nothing fun about that. And it takes 25, 30 minutes. But if you develop the habit of being okay with what's boring, you see yourself going and, making threes or doing the things that you want to do in the long run. You know what I'm saying?
That's a valuable lesson because no matter what the context is, that's the key to being able to succeed in it.
For sure.
Whether it's computer programming or playing a sport or trying to speak in front of people, right? The repetition and actually doing it's the only way that you can be proficient.
Yeah. And then the discipline, like, I don't know who said this, but it was a quote that said, "Discipline brings joy," and that's like the truest thing you could ever hear. Because, like you said, those 50 form shots. I used to watch Russ shot every day after practice when people was ready to go home, and after a JUCO practice is different because I know, we got to D2s, we was a little more spoiled. We can go back and forth from the crib. Like, JUCO, you're up there all day. You done went through classes, study hall. Yep. So right after practice is like the time to get up out of there. But Russ would stay, and that's why every time I threw him the ball or every time I knew his feet was set and he got to load up, like it was going in because of that discipline. And that's another thing that I think not just the next generation, I won't keep beating them up, but all generation, we all need more discipline in our lives because we need more joy in our lives.
So one thing I was thinking, I come from a religious family. My mom, her dad was a pastor, and she's, all into the Bible, into preaching the word and all these things. So when I was coming up, she would always tell me about how Satan is just as smart as God, right? And Satan's going to use the tools that entice you to get you to come into a lower frequency. So then he can manipulate you, right? And it's a simple thing. So one thing, as I was thinking about that social media conversation, and I'm wondering if either of you guys believe that some of these systems are set up as like a spiritual warfare to get us into just a lower vibration so we can be manipulated at that level. Or let me ask you, KJ, do you believe that after we die that we move on? What do you believe as far as afterlife?
I feel like we just return to where we originally came from. Like, I can't vouch for this, but I heard a fact that says like the world weighs like a specific number, and if that was to be thrown off by like an ounce or whatever, like the whole world would crash. I don't know if that's true, but it made sense because my point is like we're connected to everything. Like I feel like we have a connection to the earth, and when we die, we just return to the atmosphere. I don't really believe in a heaven or hell per se, but I think like I believe in like your work and the energy you leave behind you. We all have habits that we have that's probably our grandparents used to do and our ancestors used to do. And we probably all have, if we were able to talk to our great grandfathers, we probably have some similarities there, even without ever existing at the same time with this person. So I believe we live on through other things, which is, you know, in the Earth's atmosphere. But yeah, that's pretty much, I can go deeper into it, but that's the short version.
No, I feel that. I feel that. Do you have anything else you want to say before?
Oh man, that's a crazy question. Cause I have my spirituality and then I have my scientific mind, right? I have a nursing degree. I have a minor in biology, so I've learned about microbiology and DNA and mRNA and how information is transferred and down to the cellular level. And I've looked into quantum physics, quantum mechanics, those things. And it's when you get down to the science of how the universe used to be whatever, nothing little speck, and it just blew up and expanded, and it's still expanding, and it's going to collapse in on itself. It's like, that's a lot. It's a lot. So I tell people I don't like to really get too caught up on labels, you know, heaven, hell, God, Satan. I know that there's bad. I know that there's good. I know that there is death and something happens afterwards, right? So it's like whatever somebody wants to perceive that as, I think they should. Because that's scary. It's scary to think about. Even if you're going to heaven, to think that all of this can be taken away, you know, that's not something that's just easy to talk about and easy to accept, not in my opinion. So it's something that I talk about a lot, though, because it's very real and we all have to experience it, whether it's through a loved one or us ourselves eventually, you know. It's just so much more reason to respect the work that we put in every moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I know that the work I put in, like you said, it's going to be carried on. So that's motivation for me. And then as far as afterlife, you know, I pray to God and I hope there's a heaven. And if there's not, I won't know until I get to that point. But we get so caught up on whether it's real or not. But knowing isn't really going to change what we're doing right now. Right. And so I try to focus on what details of these concepts do I really need to know the answer to continue to put positive energy and love into this world, because that's the only goal that I have. And as long as I'm living, I know that I'm capable of doing that. So that just has to remain my focus. And then I expect that whatever happens after my life is over, my energy will be rewarded for what effort I've been putting forth.
Yeah. And like you said, a lasting
said,
impression.
bro.
Yeah, that was really well said. Like KJ brought up, you have a lasting impression. No matter what you're doing, you're going to leave some type of legacy.
Yeah.
Which you were talking about the ancestors. I had this revelation one day where I was thinking about this, how we are just a product of our ancestors, and we have similar temperaments and personality traits and things of that nature. And it's really crazy because you get into me, you Blake, you KJ talking, you know, we're like representing a lineage of thousands of years that made it to today and survived and obviously did something right, because now we're here communicating. And I only bring that up not to ask a question, but just to have people sit and kind of think about the fact that they're connected to all their ancestors right now.
Yeah, because there has to be this balance. People sometimes focus on the moment and then they forget about all these things before this moment. And then they neglect that this moment could change all the things that are going to happen after this moment, right? And then so I try to be grateful that I'm here because of what the people before me had to go through. I don't need to know the details. I know that life is difficult regardless, right? There's certain things that I expect to be true of my lineage based off the color of my skin and what I know as far as history. But a lot of those things I'll never really have the answer to, you know? And some people, again, get caught up on those details. Like, oh, I really want to know this of my family's lineage, my family's history. But I think they have to ask themselves if that really changes what the mission is and what you're going to do with your energy, right? Because there's only so much of the past that can affect the present, and all we have is the present. But I really just try to treat these present moments in a way that I'll at least be proud of myself when the journey is over.
For sure.
Yeah.
We talking about the now. I remember when I kind of stumbled upon knowing that I could try to intentionally be in the moment, I would get upset at myself when I would get out of it because I'd
Yeah.
start thinking about something later on and have an emotional connection to it. And I'm like, oh man, remember, you're trying to be in the moment. You're trying to, and now I'm just compiling it with more thoughts and I'm taking myself further out of it. Have you found any tools or things that you think about to just try to keep yourself here and now?
Definitely. And it's funny because I found these tools prior to starting my brand. One big one is meditation. Meditation always kind of intrigued me. And this was sophomore year. I read this book, Russell Simmons, he wrote a book called Success Through Stillness. And I wanted to learn about meditation. That was just kind of like my introduction to it. I read like the bio and it was like, this is for basically like a meditation for dummies. So I'm like, all right, I'll start here. Read the book, and Russell Simmons, pretty cool dude, like to my knowledge at the time. So I was like, yeah, I'll try it. And it made so much sense to me because it explained meditation like, you know, like your thoughts are just a river. And along that river, there's going to be stuff that's in it, you know, like a thought. It might be a stick or something or a fish, and you watch it. And then it just keeps going down the river. But you want to stay focused on that river and that flowing water, not what's in it. And reading that out of that book was just life-changing for me. And I started meditating and, you know, started seeing the benefits of meditation. So that's something that I try to do. I'm not perfect and I miss a lot of meditation sessions, but when I'm intentionally and I'm on point and trying to have a good day, like I'm definitely waking up and giving myself at least 10 minutes just by myself, sitting down, comfortable spot, eyes closed, posture up, and just letting my thoughts kind of just go down that river. Yeah. And when I come back to reality from that, I'm always in a more sharper place, I would say. So there's that, and then just breathing. I see you guys had the breath work.
Breath work for us.
Shout out to him. I learned a little bit from that too.
Nice.
But yeah, just breathing, like knowing how important it is breathing through your nose. Like somebody told me back then that breathing through your nose is better because it's getting more oxygen to your brain, and it made sense to me because when I feel it more in my head. So I'm like, okay, that's logical, and started doing that. And just learn the power of your breath and things like that, and then knowing that my breath is going to be something that's with me, from when I was born till the day I die. It's the only really consistent thing. So why not try to control that? And I find when I control my breath in situations when, it's not just if I'm tired or something like that. It's maybe if I'm having anxiety about a situation. People don't know, like, your breath starts getting short a little bit. And I wouldn't notice, but now that I'm conscious of the power of it, I can calm myself down and, and things will just be better after that. I can't really explain it. You just got to kind of do it and experience the benefit for yourself.
You ever get nervous talking in front of like a school assembly or a large group of people?
Yeah, because I care. And I'm a overthinker as well, so I'm always thinking of stuff that can go wrong, and I've trained myself to think about stuff that can go right too, but it's just all those thoughts compiled, and I care that this message hits, and I care that somebody's going to take this and pass it along to somebody else and do something good with their life with it. So I think the nervousness comes from me just taking what I'm doing real seriously.
Nice. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, because I think when people hear that someone does public speaking, they automatically assume that they don't get nervous or they've had whatever God-given skill. But me, I used to lead the assemblies when we were in high school, and I would always be sweating before, and I'd be shaking, holding a little paper up there, whatever I was reading, but I never looked nervous, right?
Nah, I never did. I'd be out there geeked seeing Blake,
Yeah.
because our high school wasn't the most diverse school, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, right.
And Blake would take control. He'd be an MC at the whole school assembly, and he'd put Kendrick Lamar on in the background.
Yeah,
and not even the mainstream Kendrick songs. He put on stuff that only
like
we
Control.
knew. Yeah, like Rick and Mortis and stuff, and we would just be lit.
But I only bring that up because it's something that even to this day, now we have a podcast, right? I get nervous sometimes sharing my thoughts and my emotions on the cameras, like who's going to see it? But I'm genuine to myself, and I know what my intentions are. And I've always felt that way. And, you know, I've never acted out of hate. I've never done anything to try to bring negativity upon anyone else. So it's like me reminding myself of that. I don't really have any reason to not feel comfortable presenting myself in front of people, right? I just want to share that ideal with people because a lot of people have good ideas. A lot of people have positive energy that they kind of just keep to themselves and they don't know how people will respond to it.
Right.
But it's just like being a creator, being an artist, being a designer, right? You just have to make the product and be comfortable with it yourself and put it out there for other people to enjoy. And somebody's going to like it, whether it's 2-3 people, right? But what matters is what it means to you and what your intentions are.
Right.
Yeah.
Have you ever felt like you were holding in some of your positive energy, like you had positive energy to give to people, and for whatever reason you were just like, nah, not today?
Yeah, because we can all think of situations where it almost feels awkward to be nice, right? You feel like you're supposed to mind your business and not acknowledge someone in certain settings, right? But now I think since having my daughter, it's just like escalated to where I just am comfortable with myself. It's like I don't really need acceptance from anybody except my wife and my kid, right?
Right.
And I want to set a good example for her all the time too. So just showing her that, you know, you can show love to strangers, and most of the time you show love to someone, they're going to show love back. And if they don't, you don't take it personally. Like, that's not what it's about. We're not doing it to get something in return, you know? And so that's the other thing. It's like, if you're going to get nervous, it's because you want a certain response from someone. You expect something from them, right? So you just have to be comfortable with what you're doing to start with, and then hopefully, you know, the outcome will be positive. But even if it's not, that doesn't mean that you stop what you're doing.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, and most people are inside their own mind anyway, right? So we just think that they are paying attention to us, and they're probably sitting in their mind thinking about what's going to happen later on and all these different things. That's why I think it's cool to be able to say something that kind of jerks people out of their thoughts and gets them into the moment. Because for that little time, they feel that door open. It's like a portal. And you can be, hey, we just shared that moment, and it's a great feeling, you know? I'm wondering, KJ, this is a little off track, but
Go ahead.
for you, basketball to me is like a very spiritual game, right? We're all sharing the court and we have this limited amount of time and we need each other to participate. I'm wondering, when you got to Southwest Minnesota, how did you go about defining the role that you were going to play on that team? Because you guys had a great team. I mean, but just start with the role, and then I want to ask you more about the championship vibes.
Well, when I was being recruited, it was pitched to me that I was the missing piece. And that's why I ended up going there, because I felt like I was needed there the most. And coming out of JUCO, you don't want to go to a situation where you're going to sit the bench or play behind somebody like you're ready to play now. So I was pitched to it like, we need, you know, our shooting guards graduating. We need you to come in and basically improve this position for me, meaning we need somebody to guard the best guard on the other team, and we need another dynamic ball handler who can score as well and get people involved. So, you know, my on-the-court role was pretty defined when I got there, but as you know, with winning basketball teams, like, the off-the-court roles are probably the most important because when you get deep in playoffs and stuff, everybody's good. Yeah. You know, everybody knows what you're running, so it's the off-the-court things that matter. So me coming in being an older guy, I was... my off-the-court role was just bring good energy, bring consistency, mentoring a couple of the young guys, you know, just being that positive influence. Like, you know, like you said, I'm in Minnesota, and I'll speak plainly about it. Like, probably 98% white, you know, not really diverse out there. So another part of what I do is I brought a little swag, a little flavor to the squad, which I like to think. And on the court and off the court, you know, little celebration here and there. You know, Russ, I'm not really a showboater or nothing like that, but if that's what I have to do to pump my teammates up, if I have to, you know, bump a guy real quick before tip-off and let them know I'm here so my teammates can see that and they can, you know, get fired up, that's what I'm going to do. Yeah. So when I got there, like, how I defined that role, I just went there and immediately just was being myself, but was kind of like extra with it. Like, hey, this is what I do. This is how I do things. And it's not anything in a bad way because it was all for the betterment of the team. And thankfully, I played with some of the greatest teammates during my 2 years there. They were really accepting of somebody who comes from a whole different background. You know, a lot of my teammates probably never been around somebody like me before. You know, with growing up on the East Coast, moving to the West Coast, and then coming to a small town in Marshall, Minnesota, population of like 13,000 at the time. Like, you know, I was different. I walked different, talked different, dressed different, and they all accepted me. So as much as like I had to come there to define my role, it was like I was really welcomed in my role as well, which made it easier.
Yeah. And I'm sure by the time, because you guys won the national championship that year, correct? Your junior year?
No, we won NSIC
tourney,
and then we lost in the Sweet 16 to Northwest Mo, who ended up winning it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And that's huge.
Still hurts.
I bet. We got kicked out in the NSIC tournament. That still hurt me.
That hell of a game you was playing, though, too.
Yeah,
I remember that game like it was yesterday.
Yeah, I think I had my best game ever because I just knew one of these was going to be the last game.
Yeah.
It looked like you were in a pickup game. Like, pickup Russ is different from under the whistle Russ.
Yeah.
And it looked like you was playing pickup out there on the biggest stage. It was crazy.
Yeah. I hear you on that. Bro. I remember watching him in high school, and I'd be like waiting for pickup Russ. I'm like, oh, he need to get loose. Like, oh, they need to let him shoot. But it's like a system, and they're on a squad where everybody could shoot, and it's like you got a bunch of athletes, so he's playing his role. But I know exactly what you mean.
Nah, but that's a real thing that I've had to work with as I get older, because I've always kind of been that way where I know my skill could elevate a situation, but I'm like, nah, let me play this defined role because I think that if I keep doing that, we're going to be the best. But for myself, as you get older, you're like, nah, you got to flourish, you know? And my mind like expanded in that NSIC game. I'm like, man, this could be my last game. Let me hit this step back. Like, let me dribble a little, you know what I mean? Do my thing. But to speak to what KJ's talking about, how you brought swag to Southwest Minnesota, that was apparent. And it was cool because when I got there on game day, Blake, I get on campus, we walk in for our shoot around, and I see like 6 young women walking past me, and they have never off work shirts on. And I was like, yeah, my man KJ's out here, bro. He definitely out here making his mark.
Nice.
And paying attention to the details of what people need. That's, you know, in my opinion, just a great gift that you have, is that you see details, you know, and you know them.
And making it work whatever environment you're in, right? Yeah. You could have been on the East Coast your whole life where you're comfortable and try to do it within your community. You could have tried to move back to the East Coast and do it, right? You could have tried to start up in Phoenix where you had some establishment, but you were out there in a new environment, a small town where you said you were very different from everyone, but you were still confident in your message, and you knew when it was time to go ahead and get to work and start putting it out there, right?
And another thing that helped me out with so much was just, you know, I'm from Virginia, which is kind of considered the South. My dad's from Atlanta, so I have that Southern hospitality in me. You know, like when we cross paths, if I cross paths with a stranger, I'm gonna ask them how they're doing, you know, or at least give them the nod or something like that if I'm occupied. But it was just doing little things like that. Like I would walk around school and I would just say what's up to people. Hey, how you doing? And when in a small school, those hey how you doings turn into deeper conversations like as the year goes on. So now there's people coming to games that might have just stayed in the dorm on a Friday, Saturday night. I was like, oh man, I know that dude, like he say what's up to me all the time in the cab, like let me go check him out. And then, you know, they come, and now it's a great experience because we're winning at the time, and you know, we have other great players. And you know, I think it just I say this about myself humbly, like I'm definitely like an asset to any culture that I join, and I do that intentionally because like your mind works. Like I want to see the group win. I know if the group wins, the whole group's winning. Then if an individual loses, hey, the group's still winning. We'll pick you up. But if I go off and do my individual thing and the group's losing, you know, if I have an individual have an off night, who's going to pick me up? Everybody else's spirits is bad too, you know? So it's a benefit to just care about another person's experience, I would say.
Yeah, you take accountability for your presence, right? And sometimes we don't feel like it's my responsibility to help that person flourish, or like, you know, I don't have to worry about this person's emotions because they're in the same room as me. Like, I got my own things to worry about, right? But going out of your way to help people get out of those dark places, or put a smile on their face, or just have a conversation. Some people just need somebody to talk to. I've had people just spew things out to me, and I'm like, whoa, I didn't think this conversation was going to go this deep, but all right, I see you needed it, right? And I'm here for it. Like, I like hearing this unique experience, and I'm honored that you feel comfortable enough to share this with me, right? And everybody needs someone like that in their life, so acknowledging that you're that kind of person the same way that I do, there's no way to think negatively about your role, right? Like you said, you have the confidence because I know that I'm being good. I'm being a good person. I'm here to help other people have a good experience along with me, right?
Yeah.
And again, you have the message to share. So,
and what you just said, I think that's sometimes it's like easily forgotten. You know, like for myself, I can forget, you know, that I'm a great person and have good intentions sometimes, because sometimes, a lot of times, I say I fall short of my goal. I fall short of what I set out to do for the day, and I can forget those things and just exist in this like, dang, I ain't make it today, or I didn't do this. And you know, it's good to be able to catch yourself, bring yourself back, and remind yourself like, hey, I'm a good dude. And it's good to hear that from others too. Maybe when you don't even have the mental strength at the time to get a positive thought off, you know, because stuff is going so bad. So yeah,
it's good that people it's good to have people in your circle that recognize what you're capable of, for sure, because nobody's perfect, right? Sometimes we will forget for a little bit about the message that we're wanting to put out just because things happen, right? It gets busy. But I know I've always had people in my corner that are either expecting me to perform a certain way, which is motivation, or they'll remind me, you know, they'll tell me what I've done or the type of presence I've had for them. And they're like, no, come on. Like, you got to pick it. Like, you're Blake. Like, you're supposed to be this. And it's like, okay, yeah, I get that. And there was a time in my life where that felt like pressure, right? But now it's uplifting. It's like, yeah, that is me. Like, that, there's a reason that people expect me to be that way, and I'm going to continue to be that way. I just have to be intentional about it and put in that work. And then when you have those low points, it's not as detrimental if you're taking care of those other things like meditating and eating right and being organized. When there's chaos and disorganization in all those other areas, and then something unexpected comes up, that's when you really fall apart.
Oh yeah.
And that's why meditation, on a more getting back to the ancestral conversation, that meditation sometimes can be almost like it's jogging your memory to how great you are as a lineage. You know what I'm saying? People get into those conversations of, you know, king, and they use different words to try to illustrate this, but I believe what it really is that you've always been destined to be great, and you just have to remember. That's why I like to study history, because we look at the African history and you see these great things going on. You see explorers and scholars, engineers, all these people that are just groundbreaking in their intelligence, and sometimes we forget when we're here walking around all the sin and hate that we are that, you know, and that we're able to be just as intuitive and innovative, right?
Yeah, and they did that with less resources. So when you think about that, like, we're all three black men sitting here, think about what our ancestors endured and what our ancestors accomplished, you know. It's like how we have no excuses not to win out here. No excuses. And that's why, you know, as I get older, I enjoy more times like with my grandparents, and I ask them different type of questions than I would when I was younger, because I'm like, man, I want that knowledge. Like, I want to know, you know, what you had to draw from to be able to get through what you got through, you know? So it's important. Like I said before, we were talking about the afterlife situation. Like, energy never dies. It's only transferred from the next. So it's like, I think everybody should really take that serious, like what your grandparents been through, and ask them questions, because they might have the answers to something you going through right now in an indirect way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
People joke about, you know, acting like an old person, you know, and I've always been, you know, older in my head, I think, than what my age and my appearance is, and people acknowledge that. But a lot of it's just being content, and I think part of it's the confidence level. You know, I've only been a nurse for 4 years. People all the time tell me, they're like, "Oh, I thought you maybe been doing this longer." And even when I was a nurse for a year, people would say that to me, and it's like, well, you know, I studied, I got my degree, I've gone through the training, so it's like when I'm here, I expect to perform, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know that there's the pieces to this. I need to be calm in these situations. I need to be relatable for my patients. I need to be able to communicate with my coworkers, and those are things I expect to do. So where in that equation should I be nervous about it? You know,
Right.
And then I try to be as logical as I can about all the things that I take on, and it's hard sometimes, especially when your team may not look at things that way, right? And the majority of the professional settings we have are team settings, and you want everybody to be able to perform at the same level, but some of those concepts are not easy to explain, so you just have to lead by example, right?
You know, you were talking about how, why would I not perform well because I'm prepared here? And it just made me believe, you know, in my life, I think that I deserve peace. I like to study a lot of different religions, but in the Muslim religion, you hear them say "Assalamu alaikum," where it's basically "peace be with you." I think it's cool that their greeting is automatically just talking about that they hope that you have peace. And if my goal is peace, it's funny to think when these moments happen where I fall short in a day or something, I can kind of think to myself and be like, well, why don't I deserve peace? I can have it whenever I want if it's what I'm setting my sights on, you know what I mean, if it's what I'm aiming for.
Yeah.
So that's just one thing I've been trying to cultivate with all the work I'm doing and everything. I just want to cultivate more peace in my life.
And when you work hard, you can cut yourself some slack when you make mistakes, right?
Sure.
Because it's like, we know we're not going to be perfect, but I messed up here. I was doing all this other stuff. It's okay. I'm not going to let it be a snowball effect, right? I'm going to get right back on track. I'm going to let this be one slip up rather than me being like, oh, I already did that, so I might as well make this other negative decision on top of it. Right?
For sure. And that's what, as a defender in basketball, you love it when a young guard makes one mistake and you see him go straight in their mind, right?
Yeah. I love it.
What other
Coach
characteristics?
yelling at him, their teammates yelling at him, like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to get the next one, too.
Right.
I'm sure you've been able to kind of read body language as far as the people that you defend since you take it so serious. Are there any cues that you can kind of tell, oh, this person's starting to crumble inside their mind and I'm about to just take advantage?
No, like, you can tell if, you know, when I don't talk to people on the court. That's not what I do because, you know, I'm a defender. I can just stop you from scoring. I don't need to say anything. But if I say something to you and I'm looking in your eye and you're not trying to look at me, that's one key right there. Other than that, with body language, I can tell if somebody's like loose with their dribble. I can tell if they're fatigued a little bit. Each player has their own kind of tells, but, you know, honestly, as a defender, when I think about it, I'm not really observing what they're doing too much. It's all about what I'm doing and, you know, I'm just reacting to what they're doing. So it really, in my mind as a defender, it doesn't matter what you're about to do. Like, as an individual, like, I know what play you're running. I know where you're going to come off this screen, but when you do come off the screen, I'm going to be ready to where if you choose the counter read to that play, I'm going to be ready for that. If you go through with the play, if you get the ball and you're set up to do a ball screen, I'm ready for whatever. So I'm more focused on, in those situations, I'm more focused on what I'm doing and how ready I am. And am I in a low stance, ready to move at an instant? Are my knees bent so I can go contest this shot? Just little stuff like that. I'm more paying attention to myself.
Yeah.
But if you give me a tell and, you know, I see, you know, your posture, like, man, and you're complaining to the coach and stuff like that, you're throwing your arms up, like, if I see that, oh yeah, I'm turning it up a little bit.
That's interesting. Yeah, I'm thinking about the similarities and differences between that situation in basketball and then in football, because it's like 10 people on the court, 22 people on the field. That team presence is so important. And I had times where I'm like, oh, I see that they're feeling weak or they are down on themselves, right? So I'm like, the rest of the 10 people, y'all need to like pick up the energy because
Yeah.
this is our chance right now. But that wasn't always easy to do, especially mid game, right? The plays are starting, and you're like, well, like we need to get this energy up. Like I just made that big hit. You just had a deflected pass. We're on third down. The rest of y'all need to feel like elevated right now. And I had so many like very frustrating situations with my high school team because it was like half of the team was ready to get on that energy level, and then the other half it was like they just couldn't like get it going, you know. And it's in part because of leadership. Like that's part of the coach's role, right? You need to foster that positive energy. When you're making kids afraid to make mistakes and all you're focusing on is the negative plays and you don't let them celebrate after the positive ones, like you're only going to get a certain reaction out of them, right? But you know, me, again, I knew that I worked out hard all week. I knew my plays. Like, I was studying film. So it's like, when it's game day, I'm ready to knock somebody's head off. Right. That's what I've been training to do. That's what I'm here to do. And going up against certain teams, you can just see the people that weren't putting in the work. Because you don't look ready on game day. Right. Like, the body language, right? You
can't fake it.
You can't. You can't.
On that stage.
Right. And so, that's one thing that I'm just so grateful for sports experiences because, you know, eventually you got to hang up the jersey, you got to hang up the pads, right? And there's something else you have to go into, but understanding that all of those, that mentality that you're taking throughout the sport, you can put that into anything and be successful. And you can lead a team in any context, right? And it's really just such a crucial experience for children, and you sending this message to the kids, letting them know that you might have an injury and you might not be able to play, but all the work you're putting in towards basketball is going to let you be great in the rest of your life too.
Yeah. When I got into corporate, I always would make it known that like I'm an athlete and I did this at a high level because they're more somebody in corporate that's hiring people, they want people that are like, they love student athletes because, for one, we had that time management aspect and in college, like, and discipline, and we have a work ethic, and we know how to work in a team. So it all translates to whatever you're gonna do in life. You know, especially the team sports. Like I wish like every kid could have that team sport experience growing up. Like, you know, playing with your homies, whatever sport, you know, traveling, going to tournaments, doing stuff, you know, all those team activities, because it's important. Because you get in the corporate world and you can tell somebody who hasn't played a sport, because they're, you know, they're real, especially a team sport, they're real individual, just worried about their stuff. Like they're not gonna give any input, like in the little group chats or whatever. And you know that stuff matters when you're a team trying to reach a goal.
Yeah. You can tell, because I'll work with some people where I'm like, man, you, in a basketball sense, you want to drop 30 so bad. You know, like you want to be the person who scores all the points, but you're not doing it, and you're trying to create this ego to make everyone feel like you're the leading scorer. Right. And you can tell that they haven't been recognized, or they feel like they need people to tell them that they're doing a good job. Yeah. And they don't realize that the success comes from the group success. There's no other success than if we're all winning, you know?
Yeah. That's interesting you put it that way, because definitely in the medical field, a lot of people didn't play sports. A lot of doctors weren't football players when they were in high school, right? So there is definitely egos in play at times, and the team work is so important. All the best hospitals I've worked at have just been because it was easy to work with the team. You know, I did a travel assignment in Oklahoma, and I was dealing with like some of the worst conditions as far as COVID went, but it was like all these different travel nurses there, and nobody was from that area, and we knew that we had to work as a team, so it just made it so much easier to deal with all of the not so great situations. But when you have one bad seed that wants to lead, that can cause a lot of disruption. It's like you can be bad and be in the back, it's not too big of a problem, but you're bad and you don't know you're bad and you want to be up front, and now you're disrupting everything, right?
For sure.
And that's difficult to intervene with. I don't know if either you have any, I guess, method of trying to gain control if you see that situation, you know?
Good.
I was about to say, bro, I'm thinking about it, and I've had situations like in the past, but, you know, I've always I've always just stuck to what I did and been that positive influence. Like I'm growing more into this, like as I become, older and wiser, that I do need to assert myself more into situations like that. Like I do need to be the one to step up. Hey, we're not doing stuff like that, because in the past I haven't. I'm kind of the guy that, I can just go with the flow. Whatever's going on around me, I can adjust to it and still make a great experience for myself and hopefully for everybody else. It's like, whatever y'all want to do, I'm cool with it. Let's do it. But that attitude isn't productive all the time, especially like you said, when there's one bad seed trying to lead. Sometimes if you know and you're confident in yourself that you can turn this thing around, at the expense of somebody else losing their position, then you just got to do that, because it's like it's almost selfish to not do that if you have the power and your words hold weight to where you can change the situation around, because now the team's suffering because you don't want to step up. And I've had situations in my life where I look back and kind of cringe, like, man, I should have said something, or I should have stopped practice here and said this to this person, but it's all learning experience, and moving forward, I'm learn to embrace those moments, say, hey, like, even if I don't know the solution, like, hey, this ain't working though. Let's try something else. And just me, I'm learning to have more confidence and speak up in situations like that.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm the same way. I used to take pride in, I'm nice. I'm being nice out here. Everyone's cool with me. But I've seen it now as a weakness sometimes if I'm trying to be too nice and not be assertive in those aspects. I remember one time, KJ, we had a practice at Phoenix College when me and you were sophomores and we were the captains on the team.
Yeah.
But our team was slacking, right? Coach Gordon had us running, and he was telling us that we're going to keep running until somebody steps up and leads. And he's pretty much talking to me because you had already had the skills. You're older and everything. But I'm like, I don't know. I don't really want to. And he came and you remember this? He came and asked me. He's like, you know what? You're a captain and you know what to do. Why don't you lead these dudes? And I was thinking, like, man, he has a kid. He's 29. You know what I mean? I'm over here like, I'm 19 years old. Like, what am I going to say? But that was me showing weakness for sure. Because if I knew what to do, you just got to step up and do it. So that's something that made a huge impression on me. And now when I move forward, I just try to remember, like, if I know, I got to say something.
Yeah. And it's just because I think, like, sometimes we're too much in our own head and we forget that other people see those great qualities in us.
Yeah.
And Gordon, Gordon's been around, great coach. Shout out to Gordon. He wouldn't have said that to you if he didn't believe that you had those leadership capabilities. Because I just brought up another practice moment. And this was, this is just going to show that you have those capabilities. I remember our freshman year, we were in a practice and it was a heated practice. I remember, like, scrimmage was heated and Coach Shea, he was yelling on the side or whatever, and you had a play where I think you ripped Steve or something. Shout out Steve. And we know back then, Steve, you was a little, you complained a little bit. You was a little whiner. I'm not speaking to how you are now because I know you doing your thing, but back then you used to whine a little bit. And I remember it might have been a little contact, but you took the ball and your team's going the other way, and Steve's like pouting or whatever, and you try to put your hand out. Because he was like, oh, my bad. I didn't mean to, bump you like that or whatever. And he wasn't trying to shake your hand. He was like, no, shake my hand. He was like, oh, shake my hand, bro. Like in the heat of battle. And I was like, that's leadership right there. Like, no, we're not about to power. We're over here competing. We're getting better. And this is going to benefit us in the long run when we have to, like, really grind a win out.
Right.
So, like, nah, I'm not going for all that pouting stuff right there. I don't care if you're on the other team right now. We're still a team. And you going to shake my hand because I didn't mean to bump you like that. But we're still competing.
For sure.
So, like, and that was your freshman year.
Yeah.
So, like, Gordon saw that in you to be able to approach you like that.
Yeah. And that was one of those times for me where it was like, I know that's in me, but it was something unaware at that moment. It was like I needed the right situation and pressure to bring it out to the forefront and then show me, oh man, this is how I'm doing. Similar to like at Phoenix College, you never know me for dunking or anything like that. I never dunk, but at PC one day after practice, I dunked and pulled the rim off the backboard,
Broke
bro.
the rim, bro.
I broke the rim of the hoop, and that was one of those moments where again I was like, man, like I'm doing something just outside of myself,
Right.
I
just
forgot
tightening
about
up
that.
my awareness of what I can do.
Uh-huh.
It's kind of crazy how you just need to put yourself in pressure to learn what
Yeah.
you can do. You know, if you
Yeah.
stay comfortable, those tools will not come out of you. You got to put yourself in hard moments, and then you're like, all right, I have this.
Yeah, give yourself the opportunity to fail, right? Because some people think when they assert themselves, they're going to say the wrong thing or say it at the wrong time, but it's all about the intention again, you know? And I've also found that more often than not, I'm not going to regret taking action. I'll have regret when I don't do something, and you're reflecting on it like, man, I should have done that.
Right.
Because I operate out of a place of love and good intention, when I do things, they're usually good, you know? And so being consistent in that ideal, it's like I just got to keep doing stuff because what I do is fine. It's when I hesitate and I hold back. And you asked me before if I have situations where I don't show that positive side or I don't interject and want to, I guess, show that love to someone. Because again, it can feel strange coming from somebody because you almost don't trust them. Like, what do you want from me type thing. But sometimes when I do things for people, I'll leave. I don't even want them to necessarily know I did it. I don't have to see the after effect. I just know that I did something, especially in a hospital setting. Like, there's just so many things taking care of multiple people. I can tell if someone meant to seal something up or meant to distribute something to the patient or meant to do something that they forgot. And I can do it and let them know that I did it so I can get credit and they feel good about me, which, you know, sometimes I do need to close that loop of communication, but sometimes I just do it because I need to be done. Right. And having that initiative and knowing that one, it's going to make it easier on them, and two, it's going to take some load off of the team, and three, I'm not wasting time communicating about it because it's not necessary. It's like having that level of repetition in your daily activity, it just opens up a lot of opportunity, and it makes you not second guess yourself so much, and it really makes you just automatically perform at a level that you can be proud of for yourself. You know?
Well said.
Yeah. So I invite everyone listening to this to just go about in a positive light, put forth the positive effort, give the positive energy, and when something negative comes into your life, just be aware of why it's there. Usually there's a reason that something negative's happened to us. I used to think that everything was random and there was just no sense to these bad things that happen because sometimes it just feels like a domino effect, but oftentimes there's certain things that I'm not taking control of that I can take control of.
Yeah.
So it's like I can focus on those negative things that are happening to me, or I can focus on the negative things that I'm putting into the world and change those up and then see what the outcome's going to be after the fact, right?
Man, you preaching right now, boy.
Sometimes it be like that. And it's like, again, I like to remind people I'm not perfect.
Nah.
We were just talking about how much we learned sitting up here talking about these things, right? And then we get to go back and listen to it again. It's like, man, I said that?
Yeah.
I gotta make sure I live it, right? Most of these things I live, some of these things, it's only sometimes. They're sometimes better than never, right? And I just believe that being aware of those things in yourself, knowing your faults, but taking accountability, knowing your strengths, but not being overconfident in them, and knowing that there's work to be done in those things, like all of those little concepts that can be applied to whatever you're doing will definitely lead you in the right direction, in my humble opinion.
For sure. And it's always now, so you always have the opportunity to start. You know what I mean? That's why I was so excited to have you on, KJ, because the message you have with your brand is exactly what we're trying to say. And I think that everyone is growing in awareness, especially in like our generation.
Yeah,
and we seem to be wanting to have this information and just hear more about the moment is here and we can take advantage of it. For sure.
And it's deeper than what it shows, right? Like I said, after you explain it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's cool. And it was already cool. It looked cool. And whatever interpretation you have of it, it should be positive.
Right.
It could be the opposite because not everybody's going to receive the message the way that you want to. That's just how the world works. But when you have the intention behind it and you make sure that you put the message out there the way you want to, it's going to continue to circulate and catch fire. So definitely, everybody listening to this, be aware of never off work. And be aware of what that means, because we're working on ourselves every day. KJ came here with us today to get this working and have another platform, not only to share his message, but also to bounce off ideas between two scholars and do the thing. And we had a great conversation, man. I've definitely enjoyed this one.
Same
I feel like
here,
every
bro.
conversation we have, I'm like,
Yeah.
man, this is probably the best episode we've done. But
I keep saying I could do this all day with y'all, man.
yeah. Well, we'll definitely have to have you back maybe
For
a
sure.
couple
Straight
more
up.
times,
Oh,
because
yeah.
we could have definitely done like 8 hours of this recording. But I guess we're going to try to wrap it up here. We'll wrap it up. KJ, where can people buy your merch?
So I got website, neveroffwork.com. You can follow the Instagram at neveroffwork. And then my Instagram is KJ neveroffwork. So just follow that stuff. We got a lot of more I'm trying to focus more on the content right now. So
Yeah.
I got a lot of stuff in the works as far as like visuals going, and we're going to get some new merch out for y'all real soon. Soon.
Nice. We'll be looking forward to that.
Yeah, and I'll also say, like, we should have said this a few times, but people need to be liking and subscribing to this too. Like, this is a beautiful platform y'all created. It's two brothers, like, having a good time. That was what drew me to any type of visual podcast that I watch. Is like, I like to see dudes, preferably like when they have bonds like that, and I just like to see fellas having a good time, yo.
Yeah.
It's good to look at and it's good to intake that information. So I like watching y'all, or whether I'm just listening to y'all while I'm on the treadmill, or sometimes like I love it. So, you know what I'm saying, this is something that we need to support. I feel like as all people, because we're so caught up in the negative. Like I said, it's negative stuff, you know, they're feeding it to us. So the chance we get to support something positive and be a part of the solution, like I feel like in America anyways, we know what the problems are already. We know that. So like, let's solve some things. And I think you guys are a big part of the solution. So I'm looking at y'all and I'm looking to the camera because I'm trying to tell them like, support these dudes, like R&B Pod, like, subscribe it. When you see something come across the gram, like, share it, watch the whole video, don't skip it, you know, because 10 times out of 10, it's going to be something positive and something that's intentional for you to have a good rest of your day and a good life. So, you know, we got to support this for sure.
Appreciate
Man, that's real. I appreciate that, KJ.
Yeah, big time.
Yes, sir.
Well, I don't need to say nothing after that.
Yep.
I think you covered it for us.
There it is.
But, you know, we on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Anchor. I think that's connected to Spotify somehow. Whatever it is, find us on all of them. Like, share, subscribe, like my boy said. And like last week, we'll see you next week.
Peace.
Yes, sir.
Peace.